gang, welcome to Scuba Diving Magazine, and of course welcome to Ask Mark, which is a scuba diving Q&A. So if you've got any scuba diving questions, by all means pop them down in the comments below and use that Ask Mark hashtag to get featured in an upcoming Q&A. I do my best to try and type actual answers sort of then and there, but I don't always have time, so I tend to just have them here in the Q&A. But yeah, if you do have any particular questions, by all means pop them down. I do have a question for you wonderful people out there actually. I'm looking to restart the podcast, or at least start a podcast for the Scuba Diving Magazine channel. So the first question is, what do you guys want to listen to? What kind of subjects? Do you want to know about equipment, like industry news, anything, all that kind of stuff? Any particulars, by all means pop them down in the comments below. And of course, what day do you want me to release it? Do you prefer it on like a Friday so that you can have it for the weekend, or what? If you have any preferences, by all means, yeah, put it down in the comments. This week I'm answering questions about zipper lubrication, wireless air integration and gauges, twin SPG, submersible pressure gauges, second stage sticky valves, and side mount BCDs. Let's dive straight in with the first question, which this week comes from Fred R1, and they say, I dive a Bare X Mission Drysuit that has a plastic zipper. So no wax, wax the end, wax the entire thing, silicone lubrication. The internet has all of the above suggestions. Do you have a definitive answer? So when it comes to anything like this, I usually err on the side of the manufacturer. So see what they recommend. With most dry suits nowadays, they come with some kind of zipper lubrication, as well as a few other bits and bobs depending on the brand. If it's Bare, they're usually quite high end, so I imagine it came with a few bits and bobs, but they usually come with some zipper lubrication. With brass zippers, I usually say go for that like beeswax, as the internet suggests, but with plastic zippers, I usually go for something a little bit softer. I don't know why, there's no particular reason around that, but I mean, my dry suits that had a plastic zipper on it, that came with McNet Essentials Zip Tech. So that's what, I mean, it's a fourth element, but I think it's a YKK plastic zipper, and that's like a giant lip gloss, and it's a kind of soft, kind of waxy, but it's a lot softer than beeswax. And I usually do the entire zipper for a couple of reasons. One, it's so that I can like inspect the entire zipper when I'm doing it, so I can look if there's any like bits of grit or something that's found its way in between the teeth, so the next time I use it I don't damage the zipper. You can like visually inspect the entire zipper when you're doing it, and it is just good just to have a decent amount of but it's good to have a decent amount of grease, but not too much. Too much and it's going to get in to sort of places where it shouldn't do and like bulk out. It also like attracts a lot of stuff. It's like putting too much grease on an O-ring. It just allows all the lint and dust and stuff to stick that much better. So I do usually use a little bit over the entire thing so that I can inspect the entire zipper, but double check with your with the manufacturer. They're the best people to ask. Chances are that Bare themselves didn't make the zipper. Usually it's a third-party manufacturer like YKK or T-Zip. They're the real two big hitters when it comes to like plastic dry zippers nowadays. So I sort of search around for that and err on the side of the manufacturer, because should something go wrong, they'll kind of say, well, why didn't you do it as we instructed you in the manual? But yeah, for dry suits, I tend to use a softer light sort of material and over the entire zipper. 391 Wombat says, Mark, what's the rule now if you have an air integrated computer and transmitter? Can you get rid of your analog SPG hose, or is it still strongly recommended to keep it? Technology is pretty reliable now. What do most AI divers do? I think most nowadays still dive with that analog backup gauge, but we're still in that kind of transitional phase, because transmitters, they've been around for a fair while now, but they're still relatively new, and divers, we do like our redundancy. But I'd be quite happy just diving with a wireless air transmitter. As you said, they're pretty reliable now. As long as you keep on top of the battery level, you know how much battery you have left. You've used it. If it's like your first ever transmitter and like your first ever dive, I'd probably still dive with an analog gauge just in case, because some do have particular idiosyncrasies and like ranges and things. So if you have it on the right hand side but your computer's on the left and it's, for whatever reason, you've got an outstretched arm, you might lose a bit of signal. So yeah, if it's your very first dive, it's worth having that analog gauge. It also helps to double check the accuracy of both gauges against one another. But yeah, I mean, I know a diver who just has, I mean, his travel regulator consists of a first stage. He has his primary and his BCD hose, which doubles up as his alternate air source, because he's got that alternate air source built into the inflator, and a wireless air transmitter, and that's the entire thing. So it looks like a stage regulator. It's got like 2 hoses sticking out of it. Great for travel, but yeah, no SPG or anything. So yeah, it can be done. As you say, the wireless air transmitters are a lot more reliable nowadays and trustworthy, especially the permanently paired ones, so that you know that you are paired to your transmitter and not someone else's. So yeah, I think the current recommendations are probably still on the side of caution. Have that that redundancy, that SPG, but I'd be quite happy diving just with a wireless air transmitter. Rui Santos says, "Hi Mark, all twin-set configurations I've seen, including yours, only have a single SPG. In my mind, I assumed that you would need one SPG for each cylinder to give you a reading of pressure in case you need to shut the valve of the other cylinder. Thank you." Yeah, this isn't unusual. And when I first moved into twin set diving, yeah, that was my first instinct as well. You've got 2 first stages, you've got 2 second stages, 1 on each first stage. You've got 2 low pressure inflator hoses, 1 on each side. So why wouldn't you have an SPG hose on 1 on either side? And I think I have seen some divers do it that way. But the main reason is that when you're diving normally, you have the manifold at the top that connects the 2 cylinders. You've got the isolation valve, but that's usually open. And when you're diving, you're breathing from both cylinders at the same time, but usually through one of the first stages. Should something go wrong, you go through your shutdown drills and you isolate the cores and you isolate that manifold so that it effectively, yeah, it shuts off the faulty first stage or cylinder, whatever's faulty. Then, first of all, you only have a 50-50 chance, or you have a 50-50 chance whether you have that SPG or not. If you have to shut down the right-hand cylinder, then yeah, you're breathing off the left-hand cylinder, so you still have that SPG to know exactly how much gas you have left. If it's the right-hand cylinder, then first of all, you should know roughly how much gas is in that remaining cylinder, because you've been diligently checking your SPG throughout the entire dive, so you know ballpark how much gas you have left. But the main thing is that you should have enough gas to get to your buddy, the surface, or some kind of stage cylinder, another air source with that remaining gas. If you have to go through shutdowns, that's the end of the dive. You've had some kind of catastrophic failure of one part of your equipment. You're not going to hang around, so you're going to abort the dive, you're going to end, and you should then have enough gas to get to an alternate air source and get back up to the surface. With 2 individual SPGs, 1 on either side, it's redundancy, if that makes sense. You don't really need it. It's in such a rare case that should something go wrong, but you've got the additional cost, you've got the additional failure points, the additional hoses and stuff going on that can just get a bit cluttery, especially if you're on a long hose primary donate. So it's just a lot of extra stuff that you don't really need, and you'll only need in a very select bad experience. So yeah, it's redundancy is probably the best way to put it. But yeah, for most dives, you'll only ever need 1 SPG on your left hand side. Mateus Nascimento says, "Hi Mark, I recently bought a Halcyon H75P single cylinder package. I used to dive recreationally, or I used it to dive recreationally. I dive it about once a month. At the first use, it was working pretty well. In my second dive, I was testing my second stage and the air didn't flow. I tried to push air, but it seems that the valve was stuck. I had to blow pretty hard to the valve back to get it back to working. Is this normal?" It happened again on my third dive. Maybe I'm cleaning or storing my regulators incorrectly. I really don't know. I always dry the cap before the dives and protect the first stage. I always rinse them and let them dry hang. Can you help me? Yes, by the sounds of it, it's the exhaust valve. If you have to blow into the second stage and you have to blow quite hard to open the valve, by the sounds of it, it's the exhaust tee. So on pretty much all second stages, especially this like traditional design, you'll have a exhaust diaphragm, a mushroom valve down here in the bottom quarter. And what can happen is when they're drying, contaminants and stuff, and even just the water, when it's water gets inside of the second stage and you then hang them up to dry, it kind of sticks underneath this this little membrane, and then it's between that and the plastic body of the second stage, and as it dries it just sticks a little bit. So when you go to do that pre-dive check, when you exhale, the mushroom valve kind of sticks down a little bit and you do have to exhale quite hard. That is fairly normal, and it's not unusual. It's not really something that you're doing wrong. It's just something that happens with second stages. It's why when you're doing those pre-checks, one of the recommendations is to exhale first before inhaling, and that is to check that exhaust diaphragm, because yeah, you go to it and then you can't exhale. It's not a nice sensation, but yeah, it basically is just that little mushroom valve. If you dunk it in water before doing the pre-dive check, that should help. Some boats, they have a little hose at the back. You can flush that into the mouthpiece. Otherwise, yeah, just blow into it and you should free it. But shouldn't be anything wrong. Could be something else, but that's kind of what it sounds like to me. And yeah, it's not that unusual. It does happen from time to time. We used to get it a lot with our school regulators, because they would like go in the swimming pool and you put them in the dunk tank and then you'd hang them up. And yeah, because the second stage just dangles, sometimes the water like trapped underneath that mushroom valve would just sticks it a little bit, and normally it's not an issue, but sometimes it would create a pretty good seal, so you do have to exhale pretty hard the first time. But yeah, it's not something that you're doing wrong. Diego Carraro says, "Hey Mark, I have two questions. What is the most streamlined minimalist BCD for side mounts now on the market? And what would you suggest for a cold water 8 degrees centigrade wetsuit or dry suit, and which model? I usually dive a 5mm wetsuit with waters around 22 degrees Celsius." So a streamlined side mount BCD, I mean, the most basic would be if you just got a side mount harness, like the X-Deep Stealth or Apex WSX, either the 25 or the 45. If your buoyancy is down, you don't actually need a wing to go with it. We often call that like monkey diving. But saying that, yeah, I'd still get that buoyancy. And because the way that a lot of side mount BCDs, the standard design nowadays is that of like a X-Deep Stealth. And the diamond like trapezoid shape of that bladder on either tips, it actually has little grommets that you wrap or you attach a bit of bungee to, that it wraps around your waist, so it's very, very streamlined. So yeah, and X-Deep Stealth, the WSX by Apex, you got the Diamond. I forget the brand, or that could just be the brand. It's just like called the Diamond. There's a few out there. I haven't seen the new Hollis Katana 2, I think it is. I don't think I've had my hands on them. But yeah, something like the Stealth or the WSX, that's quite like common. That's what a lot of divers are diving with, that style. And yeah, that's very form-fitting, so it keeps it nice and close to your body. As far as wetsuits or dry suits in 8 degrees Celsius, I'll put the Fahrenheit equivalent here if you don't speak Celsius, but cold water, anything near there, I'm in a dry suit. There are some pretty good wetsuits or even like semi-dries that I'd probably be happy diving, but I'd be in my dry suit. I tend to wear my dry suit here like year round because it's, especially with membrane suits, it's not too hot, as it were. So you can control how warm you are by what you're wearing underneath your dry suit. Now I'm actually going to do a top 10 video on top 10 dry suits that will either be released yesterday or next Saturday, depending on my release schedule. But yeah, there's so many out there. Good brands. Santee make lovely suits. We got Waterproof from Sweden, stunning dry suits. Struth, DUI, Otter, O3 make lovely suits. Yeah, there's tons out there nowadays, and I'd kind of need to know a bit more about you to give you a specific recommendation, but maybe the top 10 video will help. So search around after this for that, and of course subscribe to the channel, do all that kind of stuff. Personally, I prefer a membrane suit just because it gives you a bit more flexibility. I used to dive a waterproof, I think it was a D10. I don't think it was a Draco at that point. I think it was a D10. And when I used to teach, that was good. Nice heavyweight suit. It feels a bit more like a wetsuit, and it's a bit more form fitting. But membrane suits do give you a lot of flexibility, and most of them are front entry nowadays, so that makes your life a lot easier getting in and out. But yeah, you kind of need to sort of have a look around. There's tons, and you've got some great choices nowadays because the materials that we're using are very clever. You get some that are, normally it used to be, you have like lightweight travel dry suits, but they were quite flimsy. But nowadays we have like waterproof D3, the Santee Elite or E-Lite, I never really know, and that's lightweight but robust materials. The D3 was taken from Waterproof's like military range, so it's lightweight, it's flexible, but it's pretty tough at the same time. So great for travel. I think it only weighs about 4 kilos. Dewey or DUI, the TL350 or something, I think they call it. Again, another like cut tailor that's designed or was inspired for military divers. Yeah, people love that. There's so many dry suits out there, but you kind of have to nail down what type of diver you want to be. The Bear X Mission from the first question, lovely suit inspired by cave divers for their flexibility, nice tailored cut to it as well. Yeah, there's tons out there, but yeah, you kind of need to be a bit more specific on other than just 8 degrees Celsius. Yeah. But even with 8, I'd recommend looking at dry gloves, how you can integrate dry gloves, because they just make a world of difference compared to wet gloves, and pockets as well. I'm a bit of a nerd when it comes to thigh pockets on dry suits. You either get them on 1 or 2. Of course, it's better to have 2, and not all thigh pockets are made the same. I prefer the ones on like Fourth Element and Santee suits, or even suits. They make some quite nice thigh pockets. Something with decent storage that you can organize stuff, and also anchor points that you can clip things off onto. But yeah, there's a ton out there. Stay tuned for the top 10 dry suit video, and otherwise, yeah, have a good look around and take your time when you're shopping for a dry suit. And that's it for another week. So yeah, if you do want to listen to a podcast, let me know when you want me to release it and what you want me to talk about. I think it will be a weekly thing. I'll probably bolster it with some older Ask Marks. I'll just turn them into I'll just export them as a audio file so that you can listen to them. But yeah, if you want me to discuss like upcoming events, we've got like DEMA coming up beginning of November, all those kind of things, or just dive equipment, or just how some things work, the functionality of a second stage, how second stages work, just let me know what you want me to discuss down below in the comments. And yeah, if you do have any scuba diving questions that you want me to address specifically on Ask Mark next week or the week after, whenever I can get to it, use that Ask Mark hashtag and I will find it. Remember to like, share, subscribe, do all that social media stuff. The main one is subscribe, because I think a lot of people still think that I'm still on the other channel, and they might not be subscribed to this channel. So if you're not subscribed, if it's still like a red subscribe button, then please click on it until it goes grey and it says subscribe. And that makes a world of difference for me, as well as channel membership as well, because we do release these early for channel members, as well as a few other cool perks. But yeah, like, share, subscribe, head over to the website, do all that social media stuff. Thank you for watching, and of course, safe diving.